Chapter 1, The Shadows of Yesterday. The flickered, casting an eerie glow upon our once shared home, a testament to the waning embers of our marriage. I, James, stood at the threshold, fingers clenched around an envelope filled with remnants of a past we could no longer salvage. The crisp, autumn wind whispered through the cracked windowpanes, carrying the scent of damp leaves and the bitter taste of cold coffee that had long gone untouched in our now empty kitchen. Inside, the dimly lit living room beckoned like a ghostly stage for the final act of a play neither Grace nor I wanted to perform. Her presence lingered, palpable in the fading scent of her favorite lavender candles and the faint imprint of her fragile form on the worn couch. The house groaned, settling wearily under the weight of our collective sorrow. The clock ticked ominously, a relentless reminder of time lost, as I reread the words she had penned to me years ago, tender declarations of love now tainted with regret and bitterness. My heart ached, not from the pain of her betrayal, but from the realization that those tender promises were nothing more than fading memories, like the distant echoes of a song long forgotten. Grace's voice broke the silence, sharp as shattered glass. "James," she said, her gaze locked on some distant horizon, "we can still work this out." I sighed, running a hand through my hair, feeling the sweat trickle down my brow. The legal papers lay heavy in my hands, the harsh reality of our impending divorce, a cold reminder that our love had crumbled under the weight of a toxic relationship and family interference. The door to the nursery creaked open, revealing the small figure of our daughter, her eyes wide with fear. Her tiny hand reached out, grasping my trouser leg. I bent down, brushing her tear-stained cheek with a tender kiss. "It's okay, sweetie," I whispered, my voice cracking with the weight of unshed tears. "Everything is going to be all right." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting our world in shadows, I stood at the edge of an abyss, the winds of change pushing me towards a future that was as uncertain as it was terrifying. Yet within those shadows, I felt something stir, a flicker of hope, like the embers of a dying fire refusing to be extinguished. Somehow we would find our way through this darkness. Somehow we would rebuild our shattered lives and mend the tears in our broken hearts. For the sake of our daughter and for the love that had once bound us together, I vowed to fight not just for my own survival, but for the redemption of our family's name. And so, as the first stars began to twinkle in the night sky, I stepped into the unknown, guided only by the faint light of hope and the memories of a love that had once been ours. Chapter 2, A Tangled Web of Loyalty. The dawn broke, casting a pale light upon our fractured world. As I gazed out over the suburban landscape, the once familiar streets seemed alien and foreboding. The house remained, its silent witness to the unraveling of our marriage, now standing as an ominous reminder of the life we had lost. My phone vibrated in my pocket, a discordant note amidst the stillness. It was my mother, her voice trembling with worry. "James, I've been thinking about Grace and what she might do next." I took a deep breath, trying to suppress the anger that surged within me. Family interference had always been a factor in our relationship, and now it threatened to tear us apart completely. "I'm aware, Mother," I replied coolly, "but I can handle this myself. Grace and I are handling things as best we can." The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken words. I could almost hear the gears turning in her mind, calculating ways to manipulate the situation for her own benefit. I hung up, the taste of bile rising in my throat. At work, I found solace amidst the chaos of a busy day at the hospital. As I delicately sutured a wound, my mind drifted back to Grace and our daughter. The legal proceedings had begun, and with them came a barrage of decisions to make: division of assets, custody arrangements, financial settlements. Each choice felt like a dagger, tearing away pieces of the life we had built together. In the quiet moments between surgeries, I found myself rereading those letters again, searching for clues, for a way to salvage what was left of our marriage. But the words seemed distant and hollow now, their warmth replaced by the chill of betrayal. One evening, as I walked through the front door after a long day at work, I found Grace waiting for me. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her expression haunted. "James," she said, her voice barely a whisper, "I need your help." My heart stuttered in my chest, and for a moment I thought perhaps there was still hope. But as she spoke, it became clear that she sought not reconciliation but retribution against my mother. "You can't do this," I warned her, my voice tight with emotion. "It will only make things worse." She shook her head, her eyes pleading. I don't care what happens to me, I just want to destroy her. In that moment, I saw the true depth of our conflict, not just between us, but within our families as well. The tangled web of loyalty threatened to ensnare us both, dragging us deeper into darkness. As I stood there facing the woman I had once loved, I realized that our marriage was irrevocably broken. The divorce proceedings would be long and painful, the legal battles fierce and unyielding. But amidst the chaos, I found a glimmer of hope, not for our love, but for our daughter. And so, with heavy hearts and clenched fists, we began the fight to rebuild our shattered lives. The journey would be fraught with danger, but in the face of adversity, we would find strength. For the sake of our daughter, we would navigate the treacherous waters of divorce and emerge on the other side battered, bruised, but not broken. As I walked away from that house for the final time, the sun setting behind me like a fiery phoenix, I knew that our story was far from over. But amidst the ashes of our destroyed marriage, I felt something stir, a flicker of hope and determination. For the sake of our daughter, we would rebuild, and in doing so, perhaps we might find redemption. Chapter 3. The Dancing Flames of Betrayal. The first week following Grace's confrontation had been a whirlwind of emotions, legal proceedings, and heated arguments. As I navigated the intricate maze of court documents, I found myself consumed by an all-encompassing dread. Each day brought new revelations, financial secrets hidden away, accusations of infidelity, and whispered threats from our families. One evening, as I sat hunched over the kitchen table, poring over legal paperwork, the phone rang insistently. It was my sister, her voice laced with venom. "I've been talking to Mother," she hissed. "She has been feeding Grace information about you, things that could damage your case." My heart pounded in my chest like a drum, and I felt the cold sweat trickle down my spine. Family interference had always been a factor in our relationship, but this betrayal was like a knife twisting in my back. "I'll handle it," I said, my voice low and steady, "but you need to stay out of this." She snorted derisively. "It's family, James, we have to stick together." The line went dead, leaving me alone in the darkness. The betrayal stung like a fresh wound, but I refused to let it break me. I would fight, not just for my own survival, but for the redemption of our family's name. As the days turned into weeks, the legal battles grew more intense. Grace and I were locked in a bitter struggle for custody of our daughter, each of us determined to prove our worthiness as a parent. The courtroom became filled with tearful testimonies, accusations, and finger-pointing. In the midst of this chaos, a new development threatened to shatter the foundations of our family even further. Grace's brother, a successful businessman, had taken an interest in the division of assets, specifically, the hospital I worked at. He began making underhanded deals with the board of directors, threatening to have me ousted if I didn't comply with his demands. I was torn between my loyalty to Grace and my duty to protect my career. My heart ached as I realized that even in the face of divorce, the tangled web of family interference still held us captive. One night, after another grueling day in court, I found solace in an unexpected place, the hospital's chapel. The quiet stillness enveloped me like a cloak, and for a moment I felt as though I could breathe again. As I knelt before the altar, my mind drifted back to those old letters, the words etched into my memory like scars on my heart. "I love you," they read over and over again, "forever and always." The bitter taste of betrayal lingered in my mouth, but I couldn't deny the truth of those words. In that moment, I felt a flicker of hope, not for our marriage, but for our daughter. We had created something beautiful together, and no matter how tattered it may be, it deserved to be mended. As I stood up from my knees, I knew that I couldn't continue down this path alone. I would need allies, friends who could stand by me, who could help me navigate the treacherous waters of divorce and family interference. With renewed determination, I reached out to those closest to me, seeking their support in my time of need. The weeks that followed were a blur of court dates, custody battles, and tense negotiations. But amidst the chaos, I found strength in the bonds of friendship, the quiet whispers of encouragement, the offers of assistance, and the unwavering loyalty. Together, we faced the storm that threatened to consume us, determined to emerge on the other side battered, bruised, but not broken. In the end, it was our daughter who would serve as the catalyst for change. As I watched her play in the hospital garden one sunny afternoon, I realized that she deserved a family free from conflict and strife. And so, with heavy hearts and clenched fists, Grace and I made the difficult decision to settle our differences, not for ourselves, but for our daughter. As we stood before the judge, our hands trembling as we signed the final divorce papers, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The bitterness and anger that had consumed me for months began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of peace. Our marriage was over, but our love, though tarnished and bruised, would endure. As I walked away from the courthouse, the sun setting behind me like a fiery phoenix, I knew that our story was far from over. But amidst the ashes of our destroyed marriage, I felt something stir, a flicker of hope, determination, and love. For the sake of our daughter, we would rebuild not just our lives, but our family as well. And in doing so, perhaps we might find redemption. Chapter 4: The Dawn of Redemption. The first rays of dawn broke through the darkness, casting a warm glow upon the world. I, James, stood at the threshold of a new beginning, my heart heavy but hopeful. The once shared home now belonged to Grace and me in name only, a symbol of our failed marriage and a testament to the love that had once bound us together. In the days following the divorce, life took on a surreal quality, as though I were moving through a dream, detached from the harsh reality of my situation. I threw myself into my work, seeking solace in the steady rhythm of surgeries and the comforting familiarity of the hospital. But with each passing day, the void left by Grace's absence grew larger, gnawing at me like a wound that would not heal. One evening, as I sat alone in the quiet stillness of my empty home, I received a message from an unexpected source, one of Grace's closest friends. She expressed her sorrow over the state of our marriage and offered words of encouragement. In her message, she made a subtle suggestion that set my heart racing. Perhaps it's time to mend the fences between your families. The thought was both tantalizing and terrifying, an opportunity for redemption, but also a dangerous gamble. I weighed the risks, considering the pain and betrayal that had marked our journey thus far. But as I pictured my daughter growing up amidst the strife, I knew I could not continue down this path alone. With a deep breath, I reached out to Grace's family, extending an olive branch of forgiveness and peace. The response was slow in coming, filled with hesitation and suspicion. But gradually, they began to see that our daughter needed us not as enemies, but as allies in the pursuit of her happiness. As the days turned into weeks, a thaw began to set in, a gradual melting of the ice that had formed between us. We gathered for family dinners, sharing stories and laughter, and it was in these moments that I found myself truly missing Grace, not the woman who had betrayed me, but the friend and partner with whom I had shared so much. It was during one such gathering that a breakthrough occurred, an unexpected moment of honesty and vulnerability that shook us to our core. Grace's mother confessed her role in the family interference, admitting that she had sought to protect her daughter from pain, but had instead inflicted it upon us both. In that moment, I felt something shift within me, a release of the bitter anger that had consumed me for months. Forgiveness welled up inside me like a tidal wave, sweeping away the resentment and replacing it with compassion. In that instant, I realized that our families were not enemies, but victims of a broken system in need of healing. As we sat together, tears streaming down our faces, we made a pact to work towards repairing the damage done by our actions, to rebuild trust and love within our families, and most importantly, to put our daughter first. We would navigate the treacherous waters of divorce not as adversaries, but as allies in the pursuit of healing. In the months that followed, we worked tirelessly to keep this promise, attending therapy sessions, making amends with friends and family, and supporting one another through our respective struggles. Our daughter thrived under our combined care, blossoming into a happy, confident child. As I watched her play in the sunlit garden, a sense of peace settled over me. The tangled web of loyalty that had ensnared us for so long was fading, replaced by a newfound understanding and compassion. Our marriage may have been destroyed, but our love, though tarnished and bruised, remained. In the end, it was our daughter who would serve as the catalyst for change. She reminded us of what truly mattered, not the bitter resentment that had once consumed us, but the unconditional love we shared. As I looked upon her smiling face, I felt a flicker of hope, not just for our family, but for ourselves as well. For in the darkness of divorce and family interference, we had found redemption. We had navigated the treacherous waters, battered and bruised but not broken. And in doing so, perhaps we might find healing not just for our marriage, but for our families as well. As I stood there under the warm embrace of a clear sky, I knew that our story was far from over. But amidst the ashes of our destroyed marriage, I felt something stir, a flicker of hope and determination. For the sake of our daughter, we would rebuild not just our lives, but our family as well. And in doing so, perhaps we might find redemption.